Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming tonight. We're delighted to have you here. My name is Denny Weber. I am with the League of Women Voters, and I'm going to be serving as your host tonight. I have to my right our two moderators. On the far side is Josh Rumpel from Together Faith Table, and our student moderator this evening is Greta Kelly, who's a sophomore at Palmer High School. We have 10 candidates in this election who are running for 4 seats. Tonight we are fortunate to have with us the 3 candidates you see seated to my left. Ms. Shay Dabney, Ms. Rachel Paul, and Ms. Catherine Singh. And we are very happy you are here to join us. I should note that all candidates received the same invitation, and so these are the candidates who've chosen to be with us this evening. The timekeeper tonight, who will be helping us stay on time and keep questions the right length, is Liz from the League of Women Voters, and she's right down here in front. You all can see her much better than those of us on stage can. And we also have a number of volunteers helping us to run the forum smoothly tonight, which we appreciate, both from the League of Women Voters, from Faith Table, and from Palmer High students. Professionally providing our audio and video services is Dave Gardner from Studio 809 Podcasts, and I want to thank all of those people very much. Also like to thank our co-sponsors, the Black and Latino Leadership Coalition, Citizens Project, Colorado Latinos Vote, KRCC 91.5, Colorado Springs chapter of the NAACP, Studio 809 Podcasts, and Together Colorado Faith Table. I think we have a couple of sponsors here in person and like to give them an opportunity now if they would like to say something about their organization. Is either Mike or Daniel here? Here you go, Daniel.
Hi, I'm Daniel Smith, a pastor at Ascension Lutheran Church and part of Colorado Springs Faith Table. We're a caucus of Together Colorado, which is a statewide, nonpartisan, interfaith organization. We have a table out there. You can learn more about us and some of the work we've done. We do work in affordable housing, economic justice, transforming justice, which is the criminal justice world, immigration, climate justice, and healthcare. We meet regularly here in town, and we'd love for you to join with us, learn more about us, so come grab one of us afterwards if you'd like to learn more, or swing by and grab one of these. Thanks.
Good evening. How's everybody doing? Good. The forums are very exciting, so I'm glad to see a lot of people here. My name is Mike Williams. I'm the Executive Director of Citizens Project. We are a nonpartisan C3 who's been around for 31 years almost, and I was born when it was made. Some of you look at me like I wasn't. We do a lot of DEI work, civic engagement work. Most recently this year, we did a Beats and Ballots, so just encouraging 34 and under to get out and vote. Last year was 12.9% voting in that block. 70-year-olds were 89%. So we're trying to bring that number up for younger voters as well as give people resources and education they need to be able to vote. So thank you all for being here and encourage people around you to vote as well.
Thank you both very much for your sponsorship as well as your statements. And are there any other representatives from sponsors, co-sponsors who would like to be heard? I think that's it. Okay, good. So we're with the League of Women Voters. The League is briefly a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. Our dedication is to empowering voters and defending democracy. Students can join for free if anybody's interested. And if you have more information or more questions that you'd like, please stop by the table that's out in the lobby. It's being staffed by some of our volunteers. Video this evening will be available on the League of Women Voters Pikes Peak Region YouTube channels. Also available in our podcast, Making Democracy Work, and you can find links on the website as well at lwvppr.org. The other thing to know about in terms of sites is vote411.org. Many voters go there to get answers on candidates. They will have had questions submitted to them, which they can then answer, and we'll post their answers exactly as we receive them. And hopefully that'll provide voters some perspective on who the various candidates are and what they're in favor of. That website should go active around October 16th, which is when your ballots will be posted in the mail. So it should be up by then. The League does not endorse candidates. Sometimes independently we evaluate issues and take a position, but we try to be completely nonpartisan and only go on the merits of those issues. So now audience questions. If you have questions from the audience, that's partially why we're here tonight, is to let you have those questions be heard. There will be League and other student volunteers coming around to take your index cards upon which you've written your questions. They'll bring them up here and we will present them to the candidates. So without further ado, let's go to our moderators. I'd like them to introduce themselves. We have two that I mentioned earlier, and I'll turn it over to them.
Good evening. My name is Josh Rumpel. I am a member of the Faith Table, which is a local chapter of Together Colorado, doing really good work, not just here in Colorado Springs, but in the wider Colorado region. I'm happy to be here tonight.
Good evening. I am Greta Kelly. I've grown up in the District 11 community. I went to Steele Elementary, then North Middle School, and now am currently a sophomore at Palmer High School. I am super excited to be here and be a part of this forum.
I'm going to be reading to you some rules for tonight's forum, for tonight's conversation. These rules were sent to each of the candidates beforehand, so they have agreed to these rules, but I want to make you aware of them as well. Candidates have been placed in alphabetical order. You'll have 2 minutes to introduce yourselves at the very beginning. Each of the questions that we ask tonight will be from a 30-second to 2-minute range. We will let you know what the range is when we first ask the question. Please pay attention to our timekeeper down here for that. They'll give you the 30-second, 15 seconds, then the red card, which means wrap it up ASAP. Audience members, these are some rules for you. Please do not exclaim or comment during the forum. Save your applause until the end. Please silence your phones, and if you need to use the restroom, please do so. They are across the hall out there. And those are our rules for this evening.
Our first candidate tonight is Ms. Dabney, and you will have 2 minutes for your opening statement. Ms. Dabney, you may begin whenever you're ready.
Hello, my name is Shayana Dabney, but most people will know me by Shay. I am a lifelong District 11 resident, give or take a few years. I attended Roosevelt, then Edison Charter School, Jack Swigert Aerospace Academy, and then finally I graduated from Mitchell High School. I attended college at CSU Pueblo, where I studied political science and history. And I currently work at Citizens Project as the Program and Operations Manager. I am running, simply stated, because I have a really deep love and care for this community that has afforded me so many opportunities to be able to sit here and take what is an ever-increasing amount of time to be able to serve my community. I have been loved and cared for by schools for the entirety of my life, and I believe that you take care of the things that take care of you. Also, unfortunately, there have been a lot of disappointing rhetoric to come down from our district leadership, and the best way to work against that is to stand up.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Ms. Paul, and you will also have 2 minutes for your opening statement. Please begin whenever you're ready.
All right. Hello, everyone, and thanks for coming to this forum. We appreciate the sponsorship for this event and everyone attending, especially the Palmer High School kids helping out. I'm hoping to gain a seat on the D11 school board. I come to this race with a goal to help turn over a school board that's, I believe, headed in the wrong direction. Local elections are so important, and they are where the good work begins. I began my education after high school. I went to Colorado College here in the Springs. Then I got a master's degree from UCCS and another master's degree from Denver University. Yes, I went to Denver after going to CC. I have been in education for 34 years. I started my career as a special ed teacher in Miami Yoder School District and then moved on to Edison School District as a principal and stayed there 17 years. I brought that district from a struggling, almost failing district up to a district that was accredited with distinction 4 years in a row. For the last 6 years, I've worked for the Colorado Department of Education, and my actual job is to train principals to give better feedback to teachers. So I believe that's a great profession to have at this time. I've gained so much from being in this profession that I feel the pull to give back to this community of educators. I can bring a wealth of experience to this board position, and that will benefit students and teachers. I understand the role of the school board and where my impact would be best served. My priorities are a complete and honest curriculum, making schools about education, not politics, and adequately funding our schools from infrastructure to improvements in teacher pay in order to recruit and retain the best teachers. What I can promise is that I will listen. Most importantly, I'll listen to students because their voice is often ignored even though they have many valuable insights. I will also listen to the needs of the teachers and how the lack of adequate staffing, the age of the buildings, and the struggle to make ends meet is impacting their effectiveness in the classroom.
Thank you. Our final candidate here with us today is Ms. Singh. You will also have 2 minutes for your opening statement. You may begin whenever you're ready.
Hi, my name is Kate Singh. You'll see Catherine on the ballot, but she is me, and I am her. I am not a politician, which is literally a point I wrote down in my notes in case I forgot, I guess. But what I am is a trained journalist and of about 20 years and a somewhat less trained mother of 2. As a journalist, I followed the districts across the county and covered them. I wrote about them, and I found that the board here the current board had extreme views, made offensive racist comments that made inclusion feel impossible. Inclusion is important to everyone, and it's particularly important to my family. My son, who's in 2nd grade in District 11, has special needs. And so it is extremely important to me that he has the access that every student deserves from his education, and I want to make sure that that happens for him and students, whatever their needs are, whatever their zip codes are, and I want to make sure that we're paying attention to what this board is saying and doing to make sure that that happens for every student.
Thank each of you for those introductions. We're going to start with our questions now. We have quite a few already, and we'll be getting some more from the audience. We're going to do the same order, so going to your left, but we're going to begin with Ms. Paul for this first question. What do you believe is the most important or notable issue in our school community? You can have 1 minute for this question.
I don't talk about anything for just 1 minute, so we'll give it a try. I believe our most notable issue in the 5 seconds I've thought about it is I believe teachers are not feeling valued and supported in District 11. We have so many important improvement plans going on all at the same time with each individual school having a UIP. And I just believe that teachers are not feeling a valued part of that process. I see a lot of frustration as I volunteer in the schools, and I really feel that teachers just aren't feeling like they're a valued part of that plan because they're the most important person in that building is the teacher. If you're a parent, the most important thing you want is a good, quality, caring teacher. And I think if they don't have that, then we're not doing our job to support those teachers as they make such critical changes in our schools. So,
thank you, Ms. Singh.
So right now we're looking at D11's performance, which right now is in the bottom 15% of districts in all of Colorado. That is not what you hear the current board talking about, but it is the data from the Department of Education for the state, so I'm going to go with that. And in 2018, D11 received accredited status, which has since dropped to accredited with an improvement plan. We've got 8 schools in turnaround status. That is double the number of schools from 2 years ago. So I think those are our biggest issues, and they need to be addressed immediately.
Thank you. Ms. Dabney?
I agree that achievement deficits are the most significant issue that our district currently faces. We see that in schools and across schools, there are deficits in performance amongst subsets of student groups, including students on free and reduced lunch, students that are English language learners, students on IEPs are all achieving at lower rates than their peers. And I think it's time that we really sat down and were intentional about bringing the rest of our students to where they need to be.
Thank you. For your second question, you will also have 1 minute to respond. Ms. Singh, you are up first. The question is as follows. What has been your level of involvement or commitment to the district up to this point? If you were not previously connected, what is your motivation for running? Ms. Singh.
I was listening. So right now, I am on the Special Education Advisory Committee. I spent a lot of time figuring out what our students with disabilities are legally entitled to by the state, and that is because when my son entered public school, I asked a lot of questions, and I was unfortunately misguided. I got some wrong answers, and I had to do a lot of research on my own and basically go up to the state level to kind of literally demand retraining for the students not the students are fine, the staff at his school. So I joined that advisory committee because once I gained all that information, I wanted to be sure that other parents had access to it. Yeah, the end.
Thank you for your response. Up next is Ms. Dabney.
I currently and have served as the School Accountability Committee Chair or President since 2021. I also tutor at Mitchell High School. I am also currently serving as on the leadership team, I should say, for Neighbors for Education in the District 11 team. Here and again, being my college experience and my experience in high school, being very involved in extracurricular activities and community groups, instilled in me the importance and the real power for change that comes from being in community. So that's where I started and kind of worked my way here.
Thank you. Finally, Ms. Paul, it is time for your response.
Thank you. All right, I've lived in District 11 for about 6 years and El Paso County for over 30 years. My fiance is a Mitchell graduate, so I hang out with a lot of Mitchell alumni, which is lots of fun. And I volunteer in the schools at Carver Elementary. So my motivation for running, I'll go with the second part of the question. I sat at my computer one day reading articles about other local school boards, including Woodland Park and Falcon, and decided, you know what? I have a lot to offer, so I'm going to run for the school board. And I came out of my office and said, Robert, I'm running for school board. What do you think? He's like, thumbs up, let's go. Let's do this. And so I appreciate his support, but that's why I'm running, is because I want to keep these school boards focused on students, teachers, and schools. So.
Thank you. For this next question, you will have 1 minute to respond. We'll begin with Ms. Dabney. If the current situation stays the same, do you anticipate the teacher shortage will be made worse by a mass exodus of the current teachers? If so, what solutions can you offer? Can you repeat that? I sure can repeat it. If the current situation stays the same, do you anticipate the teacher shortage will be made worse by a mass exodus of the current teachers? If so, what solutions can you offer?
I think this question is really interesting because first you have to acknowledge the current situation that teachers are in. So post-COVID, I think after we were having to homeschool our children, we kind of put an extra scrutiny on teachers after having to have filled that role. So they're under a lot of pressure right now. There's also been some anti-teacher rhetoric, unfortunately. So and I don't know any teachers that come to the profession other than to serve children, because it's not like you're going to make $1 million doing so. I think ultimately, we have to change the culture in which we have our teachers in and how we treat them as far as pay, as far as making sure that they can live in their neighborhoods in which they teach, and giving them the resources they need to successfully do their jobs as professionals.
Thank you. Ms. Paul? Ms. Paul?
Okay. Yes, I agree that if the current situation stays the same, we will continue to lose teachers. We lost a lot of teachers coming into this school year. In fact, last night at the board meeting, they said they gained 86 students as increasing enrollment. So they lost more teachers than they gained students. So my experience is specializing in retaining teachers. I had multiple teachers at my school district at Edison that stayed as long as I did or longer in the same school district because they felt valued and they felt like professionals. And I started in my intro talking about people need to feel valued. Teachers, yes, money is nice, but if you ask 100 teachers, most of them will not say they're in it for the money. In fact, probably nobody will. So they're in it for the students, and they're in it to feel good about the difference they're making for these students. So we have to keep good teachers. So I think if we don't change the board over, we're going to hemorrhage a lot of staff. So that's my thinking.
Yeah, I agree that if the current situation remains, we're going to have some trouble on our hands. And if it gets worse, I'm looking too at Woodland Park. They're hemorrhaging teachers and students and not meeting state standards. And that's not a path that I want to go down. I doubt any of us want to go down. Well, any of us want to go down that path. And yeah, we already have had very extreme views. We've had teachers being accused of grooming students because they want to honor student pronouns. I think that's unacceptable. We need to listen to teachers and students, and we need to really solidify our partnerships with parents and outside organizations that can help the school and the community, help the school reflect the community that it's in.
Thank you. For the next question, you will have 2 minutes to respond. Ms. Paul, you are up first. The question is as follows. How are you going to attract new teachers and keep them?
Well, that's a challenge for all school districts, is to recruit and retain teachers. We've talked about this a little bit already. Attracting new teachers is a challenge. You have to be creative. In my mind, there's a lot of avenues now that we can use to recruit teachers, and I was used to that from years at a rural school that, believe me, people do not want to drive 45 minutes from Colorado Springs to teach in. You have to give them incentives, and you have to be able to recruit and be creative, like alternative licensure programs, the Troops to Teachers, we use that a lot, and different ways that you can grow your own. Like our paraprofessionals are an incredible resource, and CDE, I know, or Colorado Department of Education, is making things easier now in order for people to come into the teaching profession, but that takes a lot of professional development in order to make that happen. So we need to do that, and we have to keep the teachers that we have and retain those teachers. And again, I'll say it, they need to be valued in order to stay, and they need to feel good about the professional development. They need to have a say in that professional development, because then there's additional buy-in to those programs. So right now they're receiving a lot of extra support at their schools, which I think is great. Some of the resources that have been brought in by the district, but it feels very top down to them. It feels like a big push from the top. So that needs to be changed to where they are more empowered as teachers and decision makers, and that we trust those teachers to make a decision on these issues that are coming up in their classroom. So in order to recruit teachers, we need to be creative. In order to retain teachers, we need to pay them well and value their service in the classroom.
Thank you. Ms. Singh?
I agree with fair compensation for sure, and I think it's a cultural issue too. We want to have a mission that teachers can support and get on board with, so a mission to support education and focus on students. I think we need to prioritize funding and accurately assess need and address it. That's an effort that was made most recently by hiring an internationally acclaimed firm and then choosing to disregard the findings and then dismantle the diversity, equity, and inclusion program. Jason Jorgensen sees that that expenditure of tax dollars and community support and touts it as an accomplishment in his campaigning. So in my opinion, we need to keep dollars close to the classroom. And in any place that money is spent, we need to communicate that with truth and transparency. And I think that if teachers understand that we are supporting them with our, not just with our words, but with our dollars and our actions, I think it will help attract and retain them.
Thank you. Finally, Ms. Dabney.
I would say the most rewarding part of my experience in being with Neighbors for Education is my opportunity to speak with so many educators about their experience. And what I've garnered, or what I've gathered from talking to educators is that more so than anything, they want to feel empowered in their role to teach, which is why they become teachers, as was previously stated. They want to feel as though they are professionals and trusted in doing their job that they have a degree to do. So I think a lot of times as administration, as leadership, we come down and say, this is what you have to do, without that really truly being a conversation in which it should be, because teachers are, in fact, the individuals who are on the front lines of doing the work of education. So they would know better than anyone else what it takes to do the job. So I think really empowering teachers, creating an environment in which they feel safe and heard goes a long way. And then as far as retaining them, we obviously have to pay them a living wage. Every teacher should be able to live in the neighborhood in which they teach. I think we also have to be creative about how people can become a teacher. I think we should partner with our local colleges and create maybe some kind of mentor program where while you're in college you can student teach and then you get automatic placement, possibly even with the school you graduated from. But I think we have to reimagine the work as far as it comes to attracting teachers.
Thank you. This next question will begin with Ms. Singh. There's quite a few of related questions to this topic, so it's obviously important to people in this audience. And you'll have 1 minute to respond. What are your thoughts on minority and queer history being taught in schools?
My thoughts are that they should be taught accurately and truthfully. I think we just need to accept that we have a diverse community and get on board with it and learn how to appreciate those differences. That's important to me as a SPED mom. It's important to my family, and that it's obviously not just on one topic or one community. All of these people make up our community. They have valuable voices and are worthwhile, and we should know about them and appreciate each other.
Thank you. Ms. Dabney?
As a historian, it's very commonly understood that history is a culmination of experiences. You can't ask one individual who was at an event what their recollection was and call that history, because that doesn't encompass what everyone experienced. So I think it's important that we are teaching a wide range of experiences so we can have a more full understanding of what our shared history is. Representation matters. It's very important for young people to see people that represent them in media, in positions of power, so because it opens your worldview as to what you're able to accomplish. I know for me, I'll never forget 2008 when Barack Obama was elected president, and I thought that I could become an elected official too. So it's little things like that.
Thank you. Ms. Ball?
I believe it is our responsibility as board members to ensure that an accurate and true curriculum is taught. We don't get the liberty of picking and choosing what we want our schools to teach. Colorado Department of Education, along with the Board of Education, creates a set of standards. we don't have to make this stuff up. This is all done for us. We follow the standards and we teach to what the standards teach us. And there's a very true and accurate curriculum that covers minorities and all sorts of people. So we don't need to make it up, okay? And I feel like that's what's coming down the pipe is, well, we don't like what's really happened in history or what's really happening today. So, you know, for the minority and queer history, it's all in the standards. It's part of the standards, okay? So teach an accurate history. Don't hide from history. It's our responsibility as board members to make sure our schools are covering those standards completely, so.
Thank you. For the next question, you will have 2 minutes to respond. Ms. Dabney, you are up first. This question has 2 parts. The question is as follows. What does equity mean to you? How do you see it implemented on a day-to-day basis for a classroom teacher specifically? You may begin.
Equity to me means that we are ensuring that everyone involved has the resources they need to be successful. We can't ensure outcomes, but we can intervene in the beginning and analyze the circumstances in which we find ourselves. The second portion of the question, for classroom teachers, I think, so our classrooms are a microcosm of our community. We'll see, or I should say our schools. But in your schools, children, especially for the first time, will be interacting with people who don't look like them, who don't talk like them, who may not think like them for the very first time. So as teachers specifically, they do model how to interact with people who come from different backgrounds. I think it's important that we are equipping our teachers with the resources they need to be able to have those hard conversations, even from a young age, because those hard conversations don't stop as we get older. Equity is in here and again, providing everyone in that classroom what they need to be successful, if that's additional supports and tutoring, or if that's additional work, or maybe moving up a grade because you need to be challenged. It's just identifying the needs and meeting them where they're at.
Thank you, Ms. Paul.
All right, to me, equity is 2 children coming into kindergarten with completely different needs. As a principal, I had students come into kindergarten that could read. I mean, the first day, they sat down, they could write their numbers to 100 and read a book. And another child that comes in with no skills at all. Regardless of the reason that they came to school overprepared or underprepared, they have different needs. My job as a board member or as a principal, through the lens of equity, is to even out that playing field for those 2 students. Obviously, they each need very different things. Student A, I'm going to push them along that line and give them the support that they need. And student B, boy, they're going to get a lot of help to try to bring them up and make up some of that time. So how is that implemented in the classroom? Boy, that's tough. I mean, you can have a first grade teacher, like the one I'm volunteering with, that has kids all along that spectrum. I have a little girl I've been reading with. She can read full chapter books in first grade. And other students that are struggling with simple sight words, they do not have the same needs. Equity means I'm going to work with those students to bring them up to the same place. They are reaching for the same goal, but with a very different toolbox. So through that lens of equity, you have to give those kids those tools that they need so that we can all reach that same spot that we want these students to reach by the end of kindergarten, by the end of first grade, by the end of high school. So to see all students needing the same things is just misinformation, you know, because they all come to the schools with very, very different needs. So it's our job to meet those needs.
Thank you. Finally, Ms. Singh.
Yeah, I think we need to acknowledge that we don't all come from the same starting place, and that's okay. But we also need to understand that we can get all these kids on the same field. I couldn't get away from like a baseball and something. And as far as how is it being implemented, I guess my question is it being implemented? I don't know. 2 weeks into this school year, I was notified that the district was lacking 10 therapy provider positions, which puts vulnerable students even more at risk. And Their answer to how we could address that was to say they would plan on providing compensatory services hopefully in the summer, which means that an entire population of students with a variety of needs, those needs would not be addressed for an entire school year, which at young age, at any age is unacceptable. It's also illegal. But my care is more for those services that are lacking. Diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI is what we should have been doing all along, and it's shocking that members of the current board tore down the DEI program and is now finding that it actually matters.
Thank you. For this next, it's kind of a question, more of a statement, really. But it's I'm going to read it a couple times to give you some time to think about it. We will begin with Ms. Paul. I'll give you up to 2 minutes to answer this question. Name a specific time you made a concerted effort to understand or find common ground with someone different from you. Let me say it again. Name a specific time you made a concerted effort to understand or find common ground with someone different from you. Ms. Paul, you're first. Sorry. I think they got lost in the explanation up front. You said we get 2 minutes to think. 2 minutes to respond. I'll give you 5 seconds to think.
All right, so I'm supposed to name a special time that I made a concerted effort to understand and find common ground. Coming into a rural school, I was from Cherry Creek High School, Colorado College, dropped into the smallest school in the state, Edison School District. We had 200 kids and many, many rural folk. And I was seen as how I'd been seen, even though I came from a very working class family. I went to Colorado College on a scholarship, but if you say I'm from Cherry Creek, Colorado College, you can imagine the perception. So it took me a while to be able to relate to and understand the rural lifestyle and the rural student. So I made a very large effort to try and understand that, and I stayed there 31 years, so I must have figured it out way early in my career because I ended up staying there. But it was a challenge, especially when it came to just understanding the needs of some really struggling families, not just struggling like my family struggled, but struggling with no electricity, no running water, things like that I had no concept of, and trying to understand a student that comes to you that comes from a family that has no running water or electricity, and how to work with that family and speak that language with them to understand their needs. And I really made huge efforts and a lot of growth and progress on working with these families and became loved out there by these families. So, but it took a little while. So I definitely made that concerted effort to understand and find common ground with someone or a group of someone's. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Singh?
Can you say the question one more time?
Absolutely. Name a specific time you made a concerted effort to understand or find common ground with someone different from you.
That was 6:40 a.m. this morning, actually. And that happened when I realized we were out of the very specific breakfast that my neurodiverse child expects in the morning. It is Eggo waffles, and we ran out. What I find with my son is that every day I'm learning something new. I'm learning how to look at the world differently, bless you. I'm looking at how to evaluate situations and people differently and with less judgment. Because when he looks at the world, I'm gonna cry, hold on. I'm fine. He's so cute. When he looks at the world, it's different. And when he processes information, it's different. And it opens my eyes to look at and try to understand people differently, which is why I was so disappointed when the DEI program was dismantled. Because to not value different thinking, different cultures, different belief systems, whatever it is taking away from ourselves, is taking away our ability to understand each other and ourselves in that, and in our ability to think critically about the world around us. And I hope we all think about that a little bit more. And also, I just reminded myself that I need to go to the store after this.
Thank you. Ms. Dabney.
I have a young lady. She's high school aged. Her mother is a longtime friend of my mother, and so she's always been sort of like a cousin to me. She grew up in vastly different circumstances to myself. She's housing insecure. She has a really difficult home life, and I got a call from her mom because she was really struggling in school, and I did well in school, and it was, hey, can you talk to her? Can you help her? So my initial reaction is, well, you just need to get your work done. But when you sit down and I have a conversation with her, it's really bringing me to clarity on how there are a lot of things that have to be addressed before learning can take place. Like if you're worried about being able to eat, or if you're worried about where you're going to sleep that night, these are things that are going to largely prevent you from being able to focus on any kind of schoolwork. So sitting with her and tutoring her and just allowing myself to be open to her experience, I learned that it's very important to not ever assume you should honestly never assume anything about anybody. People have an entire universe within them, and you don't know what struggles they have to overcome every day to be sitting with you. So from her, I've definitely learned to always approach situations with an open heart and a listening ear.
Thank you. For the next question, you will have 2 minutes to respond. Ms. Singh, you will be up first. The question is as follows. What are some of the things you wish D11 had done differently during the pandemic?
Did my time start? Did it just start? You starting it right now? Okay. The pandemic is where we saw a lot of achievement gaps widen. And, honestly, I wish I could be meaner about this answer, but the pandemic was so disruptive and confusing all around that I don't want to give the district a pass, but I know that the district could have been more supportive of parents that were having to miss work and get their kids to pay attention to school. I think there was some effort to create space for kids to come together and do those in a way and do that online learning. We probably should have done more of that as well. But honestly, my focus has been on what has happened since the pandemic, and my son was actually not in school, thankfully, when the pandemic was happening. So I'm focusing more on what we're doing now to close those gaps. I will defer.
Thank you. Up next is Ms. Dabney.
I think that COVID-19 was something that the world has never seen before. I don't think that, it was clear that no one was prepared for COVID. We essentially shut down upon its onset. I think everyone did the best with the information that they could and what was available at the time, more so than critique the actions that were taken at that time. I think it's more beneficial to look at the issues that arose during COVID, is like internet access for all kids and technology access for all students was not a reality. So I personally know students that they had to come up with alternative means to get them the technology to be able to complete all of their classwork. I think more so than trying critiquing the district in that point, it's important that we look at what we learned from the pandemic and ensure that we are prepared going forward.
Thank you. Finally, Ms. Paul.
Well, I would say I believe one thing the district could have done differently is they spent a lot of time arguing about masks and things that were political on a national level, that they weren't spending as much time as they should have saying, how are we going to get technology into the hands of kids? How are we going to get meals out to kids on our buses? Spent a lot of time at board meetings arguing about the mask issue, which masks help. So, why argue about it? So there was a lot of infighting that caused a lot of time wasting. But as we both said, it was disruptive to everybody. I mean, obviously the world shut down. What I'm more concerned about is the rebound from the pandemic. In 2022, District 11 received 47.1% of the points on the district performance framework. That ranked them, or that's a dangerous word, it put them in descending order at number 94. In 2023, they got 47.5% of the points, which was an increase of 0.4. But in those same descending order list of the districts in Colorado, they became 131st. So that went from 94th to 131st, which, we do play around a lot with statistics, especially the current board. But what that tells me as a longtime educator is other schools are doing a better job than District 11 in bouncing back from the pandemic. Because although they raised 0.4 points, which isn't a whole lot, they dropped down 37 spots when they rank when they list the districts in descending order from the highest number and to the lowest number. So that's where my concern would be, was really trying to bounce back. Although the rhetoric is saying, wow, we're doing fabulous, there is still a lot of work to do in the achievement field. So,
Thank you. This next question is going to begin with Ms. Dabney. How do you intend on providing students greater access to resources, especially those in need? You have 1 minute to respond.
So what's going to be key in a time when we know that our schools are not well funded, I believe we're 47th in the nation for school funding, school financing, is partnerships with the community. In my work as the school accountability chair at Mitchell High School, I partnered with the Milken Institute and some other community partners to bring the American Dream Academy to Mitchell High School, which is a certificate program which allows you to choose from 14 different certificates that are career and technically oriented, like data analysis, and then you can use those to either get college credit or job placement with companies like Meta, Google, Intuit. So it's really just partnering with the community and bridging the gaps that the district does not have the resources to fill.
Thank you. Ms. Paul?
would you remind me repeating that?
Gladly. How do you intend on providing students greater access to resources, especially those in need?
Okay. I think everything comes down to funding. When you talk about resources, you cannot separate those two. So you really have to get creative with your funding. You only have a finite amount of dollars to spend on your students. Hopefully most of those dollars are spent on students. So you do have to get creative. I think we need to work as a board to fight against the negative factor, which comes through school funding and causes Colorado to be ranked 47th in school funding, because so much money is held back from schools, and we need to work hard to get that funding back to the schools through that negative factor. There are millions of dollars owed back to schools in the state of Colorado that school boards can make a difference with the state legislators to work on getting that funding turned back the correct way. And also creating community partnerships, I think, is really important when it comes to greater access to resources for our students.
Thank you. Ms. Singh?
So I'm going to kind of double down, I guess, on something I mentioned earlier, which is that we need to accurately assess and address need across our very diverse district. And that brings equity back into play, because there are some schools that will need less funding than other schools. We need to keep dollars close to the classroom, and I fully agree with leveraging partnerships with community organizations that are already in good standing in the community. That's one of the issues I see in special education with a lack of therapists, that we're not able to think outside of the box, have outside therapists come into school and get rid of some of that burden. Some of these therapists in schools have an insane caseload. And we can mitigate some of that if we just look outside of our own walls and let people in.
Thank you. For the next question, you will have 2 minutes to respond. Ms. Paul, you are up first. This is a two-part question. First, how would you analyze teacher performance data to ensure D11 students are receiving the highest level of instruction? The second part is as follows. What would you do if the data points to inadequate teacher performance?
You're going to have to repeat that.
Part one or part two or both? Okay. First, how would you analyze teacher performance data to ensure D11 students are receiving the highest level of instruction? The second part would be, what would you do if the data points to inadequate teacher performance?
All right. In 2 minutes, huh? Okay. The job I currently have with Colorado Department of Education, I support principals in evaluating teachers. So I know a lot about teacher performance data. In fact, almost to the point where I would have an unfair advantage knowing more than teachers might be comfortable with me knowing, if that makes sense. So analyzing teacher performance data is done through the Colorado, if you choose, like District 11 does, to use the state model evaluation system. Teachers are ranked 70% on a rubric and 30% on their measures of student learning, which we have believed for a long time, and most teachers believe is a fair system. It's been tweaked a little bit for this year, and most teachers in Colorado become effective. I mean, we're talking like 94% of teachers. So it's not the only factor that you need to look at. There are other things that you need to consider when analyzing teacher performance data, because that's not always the most telling statistic for teachers in Colorado. You really need to look at teacher or student behavior within the classroom and several other factors. And then what would I do? Support, support, support. Teachers need professional development. Teachers need support throughout their school day, and they need to be listened to. Teachers are so smart and have so much input that they can give us as school board members, not just to pat them on the back, but to really listen to their concerns. And they know what they need as a teacher. Hey, I need more help with behavior. I need more help with assessment. And we need to open our ears to these teachers so that we can meet their needs where they are in the classroom.
Thank you. Up next is Ms. Singh.
I certainly don't have that level of expertise. But what I do know is that we have data experts within the district who we need to listen to and support. I follow the data from CDE as well, watching our numbers fall right now, and I know that the current board is deliberately misleading this community with false data. And if we cannot be honest about what the students in our district need, we will never be able to provide them the education that they deserve. So I will keep it there.
Thank you. Finally, Ms. Dabney.
So as a school accountability committee, we quite frequently, especially at Mitchell, have presentations from department heads come in, and we look at performance data, especially amongst teachers, and we discuss what are PLCs, or what's referred to as professional learning circles, I believe, communities, excuse me. But these are instances or opportunities for teachers to sit down and discuss best practices for them to take back and demonstrate in their classroom. Because if two teachers are teaching the same standard, but one teacher is experiencing more success, it's an opportunity for a less experienced teacher, or just in general for techniques to be shared. So I think analyzing teacher performance also, as was previously stated, isn't the most telling statistic as it pertains to performance, but ensuring that teachers are being effective should be done by their peers who also are doing that work. I haven't been a teacher, so I expect that other teachers can tell what effective teaching looks like. In the event that teachers are not performing at an acceptable standard, I agree that we have to give them the supports that they need. Here, going back to the professional learning circles, professional development, opportunities to learn from other teachers goes a long way. I'm trying to think of the idiom, but it's escaping me, so I will not give it. But yes, allowing teachers to analyze teachers and supporting our teachers. It shouldn't be a situation in which if you are finding you're not performing how you want to, you just are immediately fired, especially not with how we're hemorrhaging teachers.
Thank you. This next question, we will begin with Ms. Singh, and you'll have up to 1 minute to respond to this question. Are there any issues you want to focus on being implemented into the D11 education curriculum? I can repeat it. Are there any issues you want to focus on being implemented into the D11 education curriculum?
I'm not sure I understand what we mean by issues. What do we mean?
Are there any, I'm going to assume here, are there any topics or things that need to be implemented into the classroom as far as curriculum-wise that are lacking currently? I don't know if that made any more sense. I also got confused there.
Okay. Well, how about I say this and hope that it is okay. I support a truthful and accurate curriculum. I want to meet state standards. I want to make sure that our students are prepared to think for themselves, to think critically, to be prepared for either work or secondary education, and to be supportive of our community. I want to make sure that we keep this political word out of schools and out of the conversation on the board so that we can focus on academics accurately.
Thank you. Ms. Dabney?
One topic that I would like to see more heavily stressed in our schools would be civic engagement and duty to, well, not duty to community, but, well, yes, actually, your duty to your community. I think that we as a nation have kind of defaulted to the standards to which we're tested, and we don't give the due time to teaching our children how important it is to be civically engaged, how important it is to vote and be involved, because by voting you create the community in which you live. And I don't think that that's something that we often are teaching people. I don't think that's the rhetoric that surrounds voting. And I think that if we start that sooner, then we can see significant change in our community.
Thank you. Ms. Paul?
I think I like that this is a tough question for all of us, because this is not the reason to get on a school board, is to decide what is going to be implemented into the curriculum as a school board. So that's why we're struggling with this, because we're in it for the students, we're in it for the standards and curriculum that are currently in place. And then it's our job to then, if it needs to be reviewed or changed, but not something that we come into the board in order to implement. I love Shay's answer of civic mindedness. The other thing that I would support or see that there is support for is social emotional learning. I think those things are critically important to our students. They did honor 2 counselors at the board meeting last night, which I was thrilled that they did that, because counselors, social workers, those types of jobs are so necessary in our schools. So that's something I would see that it's maintained. But as far as implemented, that's not the job of a school board. So,
Thank you all. For the next question, you all have 1 minute to respond. Ms. Dabney, you will be up first. The question is as follows. Many D11 students are dissatisfied with the leadership of the superintendent, Michael Gall. What will you do to hear student perspectives and hold Mr. Gall accountable as a leader?
So this is something that is actually the purview of the school board. Superintendent Galt is our sole employee as school board members. So I think it's really important to create an environment in which students feel free to openly communicate, because if you give a child the space to express themselves, more often than not, they will do so honestly. Whenever I'm at Mitchell, I take the opportunity to stop and talk to a few students about what their experience is like. And it's really interesting the things that they'll say, anything from "we need more soap in the bathroom" to "I wish I had longer lunches." So I think it's just important to be a listening ear and to advocate for our students, which is, I believe, to be our main role as school board members, is to advocate for our students.
Thank you. Ms. Paul.
All right, no matter how engaging we are, no matter how good we are at public relations, the kids see right through us. Doesn't matter, they're way smarter. They could just see it, they know, they feel it. And we did have a very engaged student at our Meet the Candidate the other evening that we had, and she said that when Superintendent Gall came in to speak with the students, he was much more interested in the photo op than in engaging with the students. So I really believe we need to have student representation attending board meetings so that we can hear the voice, especially of the high school students that are living this every day and have so much to share with us. I mean, look at the poise of this student that's on the stage with us right now. It's amazing. So I really think we need to tap into that resource and have students, you know, those smart kids, those engaged kids, those civic-minded kids, come on in and join us and give their opinion and actually be listened to, not just invited. So
Thank you. Finally, Ms. Singh.
This was you said it's a student-specific perspective on the superintendent?
Yes, student specific.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. And we did talk to a very engaged student council member from Palmer the other day. And she mentioned that there had been some talk of adding a student voice to the board, which I think Rachel and I were both there, and both agreed that that would be super important to hear from the students themselves what they think, and to bring them into a place of empowerment where they can use their voice, and it also matters. Of course, our job as a board would be to evaluate Gall fairly and hold him accountable to what's happening in the district, but it's certainly important to get a student perspective and to open that space for them.
Thank you. This next question we'll begin with Ms. Paul, and we'll have 1 minute to answer this question. How do you plan to work with the teacher union?
very closely. We are, each of us, able to be endorsed by the teachers union for our campaign, which we have truly appreciated the support and the gifts that they have given us in the way of strategies and, you know, just decision making, and it's tough to do this. So, and I plan to represent the teachers. You know, I represent the students, represent the principals. You know, I really believe we have to listen to that voice. It's a very intelligent voice. Teachers have a lot to say, and we have a lot of listening to do. So my plan is to listen, you know, and listen hard and consider the views of the teachers. They're in a very precarious position right now, and we are here to help and to support them. So,
thank you. Ms. Singh?
Yeah, I completely agree. I support teachers completely, and I know that without them and without all the supporting staff at school, I would be lost, and my child would probably literally be lost. I want to listen to that. When I think the union provides a safe space for teachers to use their voice and communicate in a protected environment, which means that they're going to be telling us the truth, right? And that is a important pipeline of communication to have to make sure that they can communicate to us effectively, but also that we can communicate with them as well. So that's an important back and forth. And yeah, I think that it's important to preserve that relationship.
Thank you. Ms. Dabney?
I am a strong advocate for both teachers and for collective bargaining and workers' rights. I believe that unions serve a very important function in our systems. I think teachers, here and again, are the professionals that do the work of educating, and therefore they have to be empowered, listened to, and prioritized. I think it is our duty to listen to teachers within in the union and outside of the union, but it's easy to work with the union because it is a group of teachers who have identified shared interests. So it's easy to serve a lot of teachers in that way, but here and again, it's important to get out to the schools individually and talk to teachers and find out what their needs are as they're actually doing the job.
Thank you. For the next question, you will have 1 minute to respond. Ms. Singh, you are up first. The question is as follows. What do parental rights mean to you?
Wait, before you start the time, I just want to make mention that an hour into this, my heart has stopped beating in my face. And now, I just needed an hour to warm up. Okay. So parental rights, yeah, parental rights are super important. Parents need to be active and engaged in what is happening every day with their kids. I know that particularly because one of my son is not able to tell me about his day, which is a safety issue, right? I can't say, hey, Henry, what'd you do today? Because he will tell me about Krakens, which is also interesting, but isn't an accurate representation. So I had to be very involved with what is happening to make sure that he's being treated fairly, that his needs are being addressed appropriately. And I had to get engaged literally every day for a long time. So what we need is strong partnerships between parents and the school. But of course, you can't have one parent throwing the entire district off the rails. You need to have, oh. Well, now you'll never know.
Ms. Dabney.
To me, parental rights are the knowledge that you as a parent or guardian do have say in your child's education. There's a lot of rhetoric surrounding parents' rights right now, but I want to take the opportunity to say that parents have always had the opportunity and the invitation to be active in the education of their child between school accountability committees, parent-teacher committees, volunteer opportunities at school, D11 Engage. I think it's important that we acknowledge that we, as a district, know that students with involved parents perform better. So we have to increase and create a space in which parents feel welcome and invited to be a part of their children's education.
Thank you, Ms. Paul.
All right, whenever I hear the word parental rights, for some reason I just tense up. I want to talk about parental engagement, not parental rights. And that drives some people crazy, but I long for parents to get engaged in their child's education, to volunteer at the schools, to work at home with their children, to support the school. If they are uncomfortable with anything, it has always been a policy that they can opt their child out. That's not a new concept. What's a new concept is that term parental rights instead of parental engagement. Parents have always had rights in the schools. Schools have been dying for people to get involved with their students' education in a positive way. I've often said we don't go to the dentist and tell our hygienist how to clean our kids' teeth, but we feel comfortable to tell teachers how to educate our kids. So remember, parental engagement is so important. That's my feeling on that topic.
Thank you. We'll begin this next question with Ms. Dabney. This is in reference to a couple of questions about this. So just can you speak to school resource officers and security being present in school? And what are your thoughts on the presence? We'll have 1 minute to respond to this. Yeah, can you speak to the presence of school resource officers and security within schools? And what are your thoughts on how they engage with students, how they engage with staff and the like?
Safety in school is something that's always at the top of definitively any parent's mind. As a new mother, I am just now getting over the part where it's terrifying leaving the house or going anywhere without my baby being directly in my eyesight. So I can only imagine when it comes time for them to go to school, especially with the egregious things that we know have happened at school in history. As far as SROs, I know that we're constantly looking at safety policies and ensuring that they're up to par, and we're being imaginative and very analytical as it comes to that. I think that it's important for everyone to feel safe in schools. Guns inherently bring danger into an environment, so I think that it's important to ensure that our children feel safe at school.
Thank you. Ms. Paul?
Okay. I've heard a lot about SROs versus security presence in school. It would be my feeling and my vote as a board member to not have people armed in schools, like teachers, administrators. I was faced with that as a principal, and I said, oh, no, don't give me a gun. That is not a good idea. So these people are not trained to do that. That's why we have SROs in the schools, to make people feel safe. I see one at Carver almost every day that I'm there that just walks around the outside of the school. It makes me feel good. Safety in schools doesn't just include that danger of the outside world coming into our schools, but bullying and kids feeling safe in their space is also safety at schools. So, which happens every single day, that kids are in school, that bullying is happening or violence is happening right within their classrooms. So I would be much more in favor of SROs and that type of security than arming anybody in our schools that's not trained to do that.
Thank you. Ms. Singh?
As a journalist for many years and a mom, I got to tell you, I'm scared of what could happen in schools. I know that the odds are slim generally, but it's really scary to me. SROs are trained police officers, and I feel better having them there. I agree with Rachel. Safety is more than physical safety; it's also emotional safety. And then we need to look at trauma-informed care and de-escalation methods for those SRO officers who are in schools, so that when a problem arises, they can address it appropriately and as safely as possible.
Thank you. For the next question, you will have 2 minutes to respond. Ms. Paul, you are up first. The question is, how are you being transparent with campaign finances, as well as who is funding you?
Okay, I'm being transparent in campaign finance by saying, yes, Karen, no, Karen, please, Karen. So I have a fabulous team of Jen Williamson as my manager and Karen White as my finance person. So having good people behind you. Being transparent, I think, just comes with the job. As far as I'm concerned, I leave that in their hands. And if anybody asks me questions, I did make a mistake. I have this beautiful piece of literature here that I did early on when my fiance was volunteering for me. Didn't put a little disclaimer on there. So we got in some hot water on that, and Karen straightened it out. And and I forgot the tail end of that question. So
It was who is funding you.
Oh, who is funding me? We are endorsed by the union, and then I have a whole bunch of donors. So some of you in this room donated to my campaign, which I truly appreciate. So including my daughter there donated to my campaign. So thank you. If there's other donors in the room that I can't see because of these spotlights, then I thank you as well. So.
Thank you, Ms. Singh.
Yeah, I think we should turn these lights up. I'm not sweating enough. So all our finance details are available to you. You can look at them through the Secretary of State. Instead of your two, I have Chris and Nora who keep me in check, and they say, no, you can't stop doing that. You can't do that. And I'm like, oh, okay. But all of that is available to you. As far as who's funding me, my mom did some, and also a lot of you. It's hard to, it's actually, turns out, it's hard to ask people for money for the school board because they don't want to give it to you unless you're your mom. I don't know. Thanks, Mom.
Thank you, Ms. Dabney.
Everything that I have raised and or spent is on the Secretary of State's website, and that is the case for all of the candidates. I am funded by the community. I'm very proud to say I am not of a background that has a huge financial backing. At my campaign kickoff party, I was able to raise $1,000 from I think 50 people that were there in the room, and I've had everyone donate from my younger sister to state legislators. So I just feel very fortunate to have the support of the community, which is evidenced by the wide range of people that have donated to my campaign this far.
Thank you. This next question will begin with Ms. Singh, and you'll have 1 minute to respond to this. Do charter schools add to or detract from the traditional public school in District 11? And if so, how?
Charter schools have an important role in our community because they offer school choice to give some non-traditional ways of learning to children who would benefit from that. And charters that follow their specific I'm going to say charter again, I'm sorry. Their charter are probably more successful. I think they can do both, right? I think they can be a drain on funding for the rest of the district in public schools, but they also provide opportunity that otherwise would not exist. So I think they just need to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. Some charter schools apply for waivers that can be troubling sometimes. So I think as long as we accept what that charter school is doing and can support it and that it fits into our district, then it's all good. I am stopping.
Thank you. Ms. Dabney?
We know that charters have had historically harmful effects on schools with declining enrollment, and they've created situations in which students that don't have opportunity to go to other schools are kind of left behind in a sense. I do agree that charters can meet niche needs or specific needs that the district is unable to, and for that they're helpful, but overall I think we see in many cases, they can cause a drain on the schools in the neighborhoods.
Thank you. Ms. Ball?
I think charter schools do add to the district as long as they follow the same curriculum as the district. I don't think they should have that right to go completely outside, such as like Independence Hall Charter School that wants to use the 1776 curriculum. I would never be in favor of that. And as long as everyone, in essence, is playing by the same rules. So, because typically affluent students pick charter schools above other students. So I think if we give that choice to all students and we don't deplete our neighborhood schools and leave them with tiny schools, and then our charter schools are growing faster, although they do meet a very specific need and adds diversity to who you're bringing into your district, because it's all about bringing students back to District 11. So as long as that charter follows the district curriculum, and they are a district charter, not a CSI charter. So,
Thank you. For the next question, you'll have 1 minute to respond. Ms. Dabney, you're up first. The question is as follows. On more than one occasion, Superintendent Michael Gall has said publicly that he hopes to bulldoze, quote unquote, Palmer High School. Do you agree with Mr. Gall that Palmer should be bulldozed?
I believe that school closures are harmful to communities. Palmer High School is a long-standing fixture in the District 11 community, and the same can be said for a lot of our neighborhood schools. I think it's very important for us as people who are from this community, who live in this community, to advocate for the importance of our local schools. I don't believe it was, I don't want to assume his intent in making those remarks, but I don't think the full gravity of the importance of our schools to our community was understood when those statements were made.
Thank you, Ms. Paul.
I would not be in favor of bulldozing Palmer High School. I think it's an icon in our community. The one thing I have personally heard Superintendent Gall say about Palmer is he's very frustrated by the fact that there are homeless people sleeping in the drop-off zones. I've asked multiple students about that, and you might be able to comment on that, that is not happening. But his perception of Palmer is there's homeless people sleeping in the drop-off zones. So, and our communities are about our schools. So schools build community. So I would not, I mean, it's a tough issue for schools when schools that have declining enrollment end up with, 10 kids in second grade, or it gives you some tough decisions to make that need to be made with a lot of thought and a lot of discussion amongst the school board and listening to the community and the teachers if that ever is an issue. So no, Palmer High School should not be bulldozed.
Thank you. Finally, Ms. Singh.
I think I would do one of those things where you like chain yourself to Palmer when the bulldozer's coming. You know how they used to do that with trees? I would do that with Palmer. You would? I get a bigger chain then. So yeah, I mean, Palmer has some infrastructure issues. Yes. So do most of the schools in our district. And so maybe the board should not have failed an initiative that would have funded repair work. So we have to be looking at, that's not allowed. Who's doing that? Stop. We need to be doing this all along, right? Palmer is an institution in our city. Palmer is downtown. It gets a ton of, people see it, right? And it's part of the landscape of our city. But I agree with Shay too. All of these schools are important, and getting rid of them is not the answer to the problem. We need to be thinking about how we're spending money. We need to be funding maintenance and repair work so that our children aren't in 90-degree classrooms in the summers and in 20-degree, classrooms in the winter. It's insane.
Thank you. We're going to do our last couple of questions here, so we're almost done. You can get down out of these lights very soon. This next question, we're going to begin with Ms. Paul. On the topic of school libraries and book banning, which is a thing that is around the country. So what are your thoughts on how books are chosen to go in school libraries and positions on the censoring of books? Sorry, thank you for the time. You'll have up to 1 minute to respond to that. Thank you.
Easily done.
Do you want 2 minutes? Take
No,
2
it's
minutes.
all right.
We got time. 2 minutes.
I am never really clear on why this is such a big issue for people. My first initial reaction is ask the 11-year-olds where they're getting their information from. Not too many of them are going to say, oh, I'm going to the library to get my information. That's not where they're going. They're going at home to their computers, their phones, their iPads. So I'm never sure why it's such a big issue. Personally, I am absolutely against banning books in schools. I do believe that each school individually chooses the books that go in their library, and they're very good at choosing age-appropriate books for the level, whether it's elementary, middle school, high school, and there are policies in place if someone disagrees with some book that is in the library, there is a policy in place, and we have to encourage people that that's the way you do this. If you have a problem with some book that's in some library. I was at a back to school night at a school, and I saw a woman standing on top, had a book on top of the shelves, taking pictures of it. I thought, what are you doing? You know, just tell your kid not to check out that book. I mean, that's a parental responsibility. It's a school responsibility as well to teach kids how to make choices, whether it's a website or a book or a publication. You know, that parents have to teach those kids how to make those choices, and we have to teach those kids how to make good choices, whether it's in a book or, you know, whatever that might be that they're choosing. So, I hate that this is such a huge issue, but I understand that it is, just because there's a whole nother side of this that wants to control so many things. And we've had books in our libraries for years, and for them to go to the extent of saying there's pornography in the schools, I'm like, let these kids think for themselves, and let's, you know, educate kids. So,
Thank you. Ms. Singh?
Yeah, that's just it. Critical thinking, I think, is what it comes down to. But absolutely, the internet exists. Are we going to ban the internet? I mean, maybe sometimes. But our kids have access to the internet, and we need to be able to answer those questions too, right? They're going to have the same questions from there as they would from anything else. So what we need is to have open and honest conversations with our children as parents, and be able to help them to think for themselves, and feel safe to ask questions. Obviously, we need to have age-appropriate material in our libraries, and that process is in place right now. So parents have some responsibility here, right? You need to be engaged in that process. You need to understand it. And if you have questions or issues with it, then you need to go through the process so that your voice is heard. But that process is in place, so again, that one parent or two parents doesn't derail what's happening in our schools or making it so making decisions for everyone's children. And when we're talking about content in the library, we're probably talking more National Geographic than Playboy. So it's probably a safer space than their phones.
Thank you. Ms. Dabney?
I think it's important for us to remember, first and foremost, that these are school libraries. So this is academic literature, which is being reviewed under a formal process as dictated by the district for admission into a school library. Just in the same token, there is a process for removal of those books. Now, my personal position is that libraries should always be a place for more books and not less. I grew up and people were so commonly saying that reading is fundamental. So I think that we should have a wider range of books that speak to a wide range of experiences here and again, so students can read about experiences that are representative of their own. In the event that you find material inappropriate for your child, there's always the option of preventing your child from reading those materials without not affording another student potentially the opportunity to see themselves in literature. So I think it's, here and again, we understand that there are already safeguards in place and not allow rhetoric to take us away from what the reality is. Yes, we're looking at National Geographics. It's like the difference between art and porn, right? And if you're questioning the books that are in a school library, take some time and go to your local school and talk to your librarian and see what they have to say about their collection.
Thank you all for your responses. This will be our second to last question. You will have 1 minute to respond. Ms. Singh, you will be up first. The question is, do you believe age-appropriate sex ed should be taught in high school?
Yes. Yes, I do believe that. I think whatever side of the aisle you are on, none of us want to see more teen pregnancies or unwanted pregnancies. And it's all about education and honesty with our kids, right? Not all of our kids are having those conversations at home, and that's okay. This is all knowledge that everyone should have. I don't want any kid to have questions that they're answering themselves or at the I was going to make a joke, but I don't think, okay. I was going to say answer it at the school library, but that's a joke. Yeah, I believe education is the answer regardless of the topic, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Dabney.
I do believe that we should be teaching age-appropriate sexual education in our high schools because education is the means by which you are able to make an educated decision. As public schools, we should be teaching our students more about physical, sexual, mental health, comprehensive health overall, because all of these things contribute to your wellness. We should never be putting our students in a place to move through life in a way that is potentially harmful, and we can avoid a lot of negative outcomes and circumstances with education and discourse. So I agree that schools should always be a place for more education, not less.
Thank you. Finally, Ms. Paul.
All right. Yes, I would also be in favor of age-appropriate sex education in high school. Kids need to have honest dialogue with adults that they trust. We need to follow standards and curriculum, which are also in place for this topic. And this would include all health within these classes, mental health, physical health, emotional health, because kids have questions. They want to go to those adults that they trust and talk to them about these things. Better to guide them than to let them solely learn from each other. So I think, as Kate said, education is important no matter what the topic. The solution is a better education.
Thank you. This will be our final question. We'll start off with Ms. Dabney. I think it's appropriate because there are so many students represented here tonight, including right here next to me. How will you engage with students across the district? Sorry, I'll give you up to 2 minutes for this.
Having the opportunity to talk to students has always been one of my favorite parts of this work. There's never a point in time in which I walk down the Mitchell hallways and I'm not immediately reminded of my own experience. But I think we definitely need to have something similar to what District 2 has, in which they have a non-voting member who is a student that sits on their board who advises the board as a student representative. Here and again, I think it's important as board members and representatives, we go to the schools for which we are responsible and are talking to students in the classrooms about their experience, and that is our duty. So that is created intentionally, and it's a culture that is created. So I do appreciate that there are assignments for the board members to attend certain schools, but it would be great if we could challenge our board members to get across the full span of the district to have a wider understanding, or a more complete understanding, I should say, of the circumstances our students find themselves in, because it's a diverse district and we have diverse needs. But it's the only way you can find out what somebody needs is by talking to them. We can't ever assume what someone needs, because I think that's created some of the issues that we find ourselves in now.
Thank you. Ms. Paul?
All right, I did attend the board meeting last night, and I do like that concept of bringing kids in to interact with the board. I see that more at a work session than an actual board meeting, just when there's a little bit more time. But I do like that concept. I also like the concept of, like, I have 20 schools that I'm assigned to as a board member to go out and visit those schools, not for photo ops, but for actual engagement with those students, and especially at the junior high, high school level, or the middle school and high school, is to listen to those students, because boy, you will learn a lot about a school by listening to students. I also agree with what Shay said about bringing a student representation into the board meetings so that they can chime in on the issues that come before the board. Because these are our accomplishments. These kids are our accomplishments as they come through the District 11 system. I talked to so many people that started in elementary school in District 11, went all the way through and graduated with pride. You know, so I really believe that we need to see these students as, wow, what a great job they did to get to this point, and they need to be listened to. And that will also help them be more civic-minded and be those activists, because those kids are out there. They're ready to go. They're ready to give us their input, and they want to be heard. These students want to be heard. So you can't just, it's not for the rhetoric, it's not for the photo op, it's to really listen. So,
Thank you. Ms. Singh?
Yeah, I've been really impressed and amazed, I think, with each year on how informed these kids are to a level that I just never was when I was that age. I don't know if it's the internet, I don't know what it is, but our students are really engaged. They're advocating for themselves, they're advocating for each other, and all we need to do is listen to what they're saying. They have their student council, their government in place already, where they're surveying each other and making sure that they understand what each other needs. So yeah, we should absolutely have representation on the board. They're already doing the work that that they need to be doing, and it's amazing. And we need to be encouraging that and empowering them so that they know that they can talk to us and they have a say in their own education because they're interested in doing that and they have the capability to do that. So let's let them do that.
Thank you all for your guys' participation in this forum. It is now time for your guys' closing statements. Each candidate will have 1 minute. We will start with Ms. Singh, and you may begin whenever you're ready.
My concern with this board is that they are not advocates of education or community. They've made noise, they've created distractions, they've introduced extreme political views, they've made headlines, some of which I have written. And it's embarrassing to think that some of them have had the opportunity to represent our community on a national stage. And we have the chance right now to change that perspective. We have a chance right now to make sure that our values are being reflected in what's being taught to our children and in what's coming into our community to push it forward, right? And it's all of our responsibility. We're just the ones sitting under these really, really hot lights. So what we need from you guys is time, talent, treasure, if you have it, to really push this message forward so that we're not just sitting up here talking. We need to actually make a change.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Dabney.
What I would like to share in closing is that education and schools affect our entire community, whether you have children in school or not. As such, I think it's time for us to have a transparent conversation about us all pouring back into our schools. It's time for us to all do our part. These children are our future and they will be our coworkers, they will be our caretakers as we move into the future. They'll be the caretaker of our entire society. Students, parents, educators, community members, we all have to work together to create an environment in which we are optimizing the chances of success for all of our students, whether they're college bound, if they're going to the workforce, or if they are going to learn a trade. I believe that's all.
Thank you. Ms. Paul, you will have the final closing statement.
all right. I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I love that you're all civically active and that you come to these kinds of events and listen to all our fabulous comments. I really have a heartfelt value about this election because I'm scared, that this board is going to continue in the fashion that it is, and I just want everyone to encourage everyone to vote and to really, we really need to focus on getting the vote out because when we vote, we are heard. So that's so important. I've been doing a ton of door knocking, which turns out I love it. I never knew that about myself. So I just feel like I'm advocating for my team when I get out there, and it just feels good. So I'd like you all to do the same in any way that you can. Just talk to people and tell them about our team and what's riding on this is so important. So I, again, appreciate everybody coming tonight and you guys moderating, and we appreciate your attendance.
Thank you all very much. I'd like to first of all thank the audience for your engagement, your excellent questions, and for the respect you've shown the candidates throughout the entire forum. That's very much appreciated. And now is a chance for you to show your approval and your appreciation to your candidates with a round of applause, please. And I'd also now like to ask all of our student volunteers who have been taking time tonight to be here and to see how this all goes to please stand, and I'd also like to give them a round of applause. I have just one quick announcement that I'd like to make. There will be another District 11 candidate forum on October 17th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Wasson High School. That's at 2115 Afton Way. And we will again have student moderators for that and would very much like to have you there. We will do our best to try to find some new questions and also take your new questions so that those of you that are here tonight will hear some new material as well. We can close now. I would like to say one other thing. Please, everyone vote. And if everyone who's a volunteer or one of the candidates would stay around for just a moment, we'd like to get a photograph of everyone together. But again, thank you all very much, and we look forward to seeing you October 17th.